Evil Dead Rise.
What is this?
Of the Dead.
Mom?
Be a big, happy family again.
You don't look so...
What happens when a normal family night turns into a terrifying fight for survival? Anger Evil Dead Rise 2023 brings brutal horror, shocking twists, and non-stop nightmare fuel that will have you on the edge of your seat. Get ready for the full story, creepy facts, terrifying moments, and our honest review only on Filmy Review Hub. Ghost Evil Dead Rise is a 2023 supernatural horror movie written and directed by Lee Cronin. It serves as a follow-up to Evil Dead from 2013 and is the fifth movie in the Evil Dead franchise. The movie stars Lily Sullivan and Alyssa Sutherland as two sisters who have been apart for a long time but are forced to come together when their family is attacked by terrifying supernatural creatures known as Deadites. The movie also features Morgan Davies, Gabrielle Eccles, and Nell Fisher, who made her movie debut with this film. The story mainly focuses on the family and their desperate struggle to survive as the Deadites take over their home. Unlike a typical haunted house story, Evil Dead Rise turns an ordinary apartment building into a brutal nightmare where there is almost nowhere safe to hide. The movie is an international production involving New Zealand, Ireland, and the United States. Before Evil Dead Rise became a reality, there were several plans for other projects connected to the franchise. Some of those ideas included direct sequels to the 2013 Evil Dead movie and Army of Darkness, as well as another season of the TV series Ash vs. Evil Dead. However, those projects never moved forward. Things finally started coming together in 2019 when Sam Raimi announced that a new Evil Dead movie was being developed. Raimi, who created the original franchise, was involved as an executive producer alongside Bruce Campbell, while Rob Tappert served as a producer. Lee Cronin was chosen to write and direct the new movie. New Line Cinema, which had been involved with the original movie, was also announced as one of the production companies behind the project. Filming officially took place in New Zealand, with principal photography running from June through October 2021. Originally, Evil Dead Rise was planned to premiere on the streaming service HBO Max. However, after the movie received strong reactions during test screenings, Warner Bros. Pictures decided to give it a theatrical release instead. That decision gave horror fans the chance to experience all the blood, violence, and terrifying moments on the big screen. Evil Dead Rise had its world premiere at the South by Southwest Film and TV Festival on March 15, 2023. It was later released in theaters across the United States on April 21, 2023 by Warner Bros. Pictures. The movie received mostly positive reviews from critics. Many viewers praised its intense horror, disturbing practical effects, Wild violence, creepy atmosphere, and the performances of Lily Sullivan and Alyssa Sutherland, the movie also became a major box office success for the franchise. Worldwide, Evil Dead Rise made around $147 million, making it the highest grossing movie in the Evil Dead series at the time. That was a huge achievement for a horror franchise that had been around for decades. The movie also received recognition at the 51st Saturn Awards, where it was nominated for Best Horror Film and Best Makeup. These nominations highlighted the movie's impressive horror effects and disturbing creature makeup. Overall, Evil Dead Rise takes the classic Evil Dead formula and puts it in a fresh setting. Instead of following a group of people trapped in an isolated cabin, the story takes place inside a crowded apartment building, making the whole situation feel even more intense and claustrophobic, with terrifying deadites, brutal kills, disturbing visuals, family drama, and non stop tension. Evil Dead Rise delivers the kind of crazy horror experience fans expect from the franchise. If you're into supernatural horror, bloody practical effects, scary creatures, survival stories, and seriously intense movies, this one is definitely worth checking out. The movie opens with three cousins, Teresa and Jessica, along with Jessica's new boyfriend Caleb, staying at a cabin near a lake. At first, Jessica seems seriously sick and acts strangely. But things quickly turn into a complete nightmare. Jessica suddenly attacks Teresa, brutally scalping her, and then kills Caleb by decapitating him. After that, Jessica mysteriously rises into the air and floats above the lake. Then the story jumps back one day earlier. Beth, a guitar technician, is dealing with some personal problems. She has just found out that she's pregnant, and the news leaves her confused and upset. Looking for support, Beth goes to visit her older sister Ellie, who lives with her three children, teenagers Danny and Bridget, and her younger daughter Cassie. Ellie is a tattoo artist and a single mom. She and her kids live inside Mond Apartments, an old and condemned apartment building in Los Angeles. The place is already falling apart and things are about to get way worse. While Beth is visiting Ellie, a powerful earthquake shakes the building. At the same time, Danny, Bridget, and Cassie are down in the basement parking area. The earthquake causes part of the floor to collapse and reveals a hidden chamber that had been sealed away underneath the building. Danny gets curious and decides to check it out. Inside the secret room, he discovers several old religious objects, three strange phonograph records from 1923, and a mysterious book. Danny takes the book back upstairs because he thinks he might be able to sell it. Since his family is struggling financially, he believes the money could help his mom. Big mistake. Danny plays the first record and hears the story of a priest who had tried to study the strange book. The book turns out to be one of three versions of the Naturom Demonto, a terrifying book connected to dark supernatural forces. The first recording explains that the priest tried to understand the book but eventually gave up because of the evil surrounding it. Then Danny plays the second recording. This time, the recording reveals that the priest secretly continued his research. He eventually discovers a strange incantation and reads it aloud. That decision unleashes something evil. The ritual summons demonic creatures known as Deadites. Soon after, the building loses power. Ellie is alone inside the apartment when an invisible supernatural force attacks her. She becomes possessed by the Deadites. Ellie suddenly returns to the apartment acting completely different. Her personality is gone and she starts behaving in a terrifying and violent way. She threatens her own family and becomes increasingly dangerous. At one point, Ellie seems to briefly regain control of herself. She begs Beth to protect her children before the evil completely takes over again. Ellie eventually dies, and Beth and the neighbors try to deal with what just happened. They place Ellie in her bedroom and begin searching for a way to escape the building, but they quickly realize they're trapped. The staircase has collapsed, the elevator is badly damaged, and they can't reach the fire escape. Their options are disappearing fast. Then Ellie comes back. The Deadite version of Ellie attacks the people inside the building. She brutally goes after the neighbors, killing several of them and turning the apartment into a blood-soaked nightmare. Beth and the children manage to lock Ellie outside their apartment for a short time. Danny finally admits to Beth that he found the strange book and brought it upstairs. Beth realizes that this book is probably connected to everything that's happening. but Ellie is smarter and more dangerous than they expected. She tricks little Cassie into opening the apartment door. As soon as Cassie unlocks it, Ellie attacks. Beth and Danny rush to save Cassie and manage to push Ellie back outside. But while everyone is distracted, Bridget gets infected through the wound on her body. The deadite infection begins taking control of Bridget. Bridget becomes violent and attacks Beth. She then turns against her own brother Danny and little sister Cassie. Cassie desperately fights back and accidentally drives a broken broom handle through Bridget's head, killing her. Beth realizes they need to find out how to stop the Deadites. She listens to the third phonograph recording, hoping it will explain how to get rid of the evil. Unfortunately, the recording gives them terrible news. The priest had tried to stop the Deadites before, but his plan failed. His allies were possessed one after another, and eventually the only way to stop the creatures was to completely destroy the body they had taken over. Things get even worse. Bridget comes back to life and attacks again. She grabs a knife and fatally stabs Danny. Even though he is badly injured, Danny manages to fight back. He sets Bridget on fire before eventually dying from his wounds. Meanwhile, Ellie continues looking for a way inside the apartment. She eventually finds a way through the building's ventilation system and gets inside. Beth realizes that Ellie now knows she's pregnant. Ellie becomes obsessed with Beth's unborn baby and tries to rip the fetus out of her. Beth fights back with everything she has, and with Cassie's help, they manage to hurt and temporarily disable Ellie using a pair of scissors. Ellie then tries to manipulate Cassie emotionally. She attempts to convince the little girl that Beth doesn't care about her and that her mother is still there somewhere inside the monster, but Cassie refuses to fall for it. She realizes the horrible truth. Her real mother is already gone, and the creature in front of her is something else. Then the situation gets completely insane. Danny and the dead neighbors become possessed by the Deadites. Beth and Cassie have no choice but to run for their lives. They take shelter inside the damaged elevator, but the Deadites aren't letting them escape. Ellie, Bridget, and Danny suddenly merge together into one horrifying creature with multiple arms and legs. This giant monster becomes known as the Marauder. The creature climbs on top of the elevator and attacks Beth and Cassie while the elevator fills with blood. The elevator can't handle the weight of the massive creature. Suddenly, the elevator breaks loose and plummets toward the ground floor. Beth and Cassie survive the fall and manage to escape into the parking lot. But the Marauder survives too. The monster grabs Cassie and tries to kill her with a chainsaw. Just when Cassie is about to be killed, Beth comes back and distracts the creature. Beth and Cassie fight together and eventually manage to overpower the Marauder. They force the monster into a wood chipper, completely destroying its body. Even after being defeated, Ellie's severed head continues to taunt Beth. Ellie tells her that she'll never be a good mother and tries to get inside Beth's head. Beth has had enough. She kicks Ellie's head straight into the wood chipper, finally shutting her up for good. Beth and Cassie escape the apartment building together, leaving the nightmare behind them. The next morning, Jessica arrives at the parking lot, apparently preparing to leave for her vacation. She has no idea what happened inside the building. But as Jessica gets ready to leave, an unseen supernatural force suddenly attacks her. The movie then connects back to the opening scene, showing that the evil has not truly disappeared and suggesting that the nightmare may be far from over. Casting the shift from isolated woodland isolation to vertical urban confinement defines the core spatial strategy of Evil Dead Rise. Asterisk, the film relocates the iconic Deadite outbreak from the familiar cabin in the woods template into the top floors of the Mond Apartments, a crumbling Art Deco residential tower in Los Angeles marked for demolition. This setting immediately introduces layers of pre-existing tension, financial precarity, familial fracture, and the literal instability of the structure itself. An earthquake that cracks open a long-sealed vault beneath the parking garage is not merely a plot catalyst, but an externalization of the pressures already fracturing the central family unit. The building's condemned status, failing systems, and limited escape routes convert the classic Evil Dead claustrophobia into a high rise siege, drawing visual and atmospheric parallels to films such as Demons 2 and Wreck while retaining the franchise's signature kinetic camera language. Beth, a touring guitar technician, arrives unannounced after discovering she is pregnant. Her relationship with her older sister Ellie, a tattoo artist and single mother, is strained by distance, unmet expectations, and the practical realities of Ellie's life after her husband abandoned the family. Ellie lives with her three children, teenagers Danny and Bridget and young Cassie, in a space that already feels provisional. The apartment functions as both home and pressure cooker. Everyday objects, tattoo equipment, children's toys, kitchen utensils later become instruments of violence, underscoring how domestic familiarity amplifies horror once the Deadites take hold. Danny's discovery of the Naturom Demonto and accompanying phonograph records inside the vault initiates the outbreak. The records, dating to 1923, document a priest's secretive research into one of three volumes of the book. The second recording contains the fatal incantation. The third later reveals the failure of any attempted exorcism and the necessity of total physical destruction of the host. Ellie's possession sequence is a sustained set piece of physical and psychological transformation. Trapped in a malfunctioning elevator, she is assaulted by an unseen force that manipulates cables and metal with the same aggressive, almost playful violence the franchise has long reserved for its victims. When she returns to the apartment, her demeanor shifts from dazed to predatory. Alyssa Sutherland's performance calibrates the transition carefully. Initial moments of residual maternal concern give way to taunting, elastic facial contortions, and a voice that oscillates between mock affectionate baby talk and guttural menace. Lines such as "Mommies with the maggots" now weaponize the language of care, turning the mother's role into the primary vector of threat. The deadite Ellie crawls, levitates, and contorts through vents and walls, exploiting the vertical architecture of the building in ways the original cabin setting never allowed. The progressive infection of the children intensifies the film's focus on familial betrayal. Bridget's wound from an early attack festers into possession. She turns first on Beth and then on her siblings. Danny, who retrieved the book in the hope of selling it to ease the family's financial strain, becomes both catalyst and later victim. Cassie, the youngest, is forced to confront the erasure of her mother while still processing the loss in real time. The film does not shield the audience from the psychological impact on the child. Moments in which a deadite Ellie attempts emotional manipulation, invoking shared memories or maternal authority, are met with Cassie's growing recognition that the entity wearing her mother's face is no longer her parent. This recognition is hard won and costly, achieved only after repeated assaults that test the limits of what the franchise has previously shown regarding children and violence. Practical effects remain central to the film's identity. Over 500 liters of fake blood were used, mixed from food grade dyes, corn syrup, and water, and transported in bulk containers. The elevator sequence that floods with blood was achieved by lowering a practical set into a large tank and later dumping liquid through engineered channels on a full-scale lobby set, creating a direct visual homage to The Shining while escalating the volume and chaos. Body horror is rendered through extensive prosthetic work and physical performance rather than digital enhancement. Sutherland's deadite contortions, the progressive decay of the possessed children, and the eventual fusion of Ellie, Bridget, and Danny into the multi-limbed Marauder rely on elaborate makeup, rigging, and practical construction. The Marauder itself functions as both a climax monster and thematic condensation, a grotesque amalgamation of the corrupted family unit, its extra limbs, and merged torsos, literalizing the idea that the Deadites do not merely possess individuals but pervert the bonds between them. Beth's pregnancy subplot intersects with the possession narrative at several points. Deadite Ellie attempts to attack the unborn child directly, framing maternity itself as contested territory. Beth's arc moves from reluctance and uncertainty about parenthood toward a protective ferocity forced by circumstance. The film does not present this transformation as neat or redemptive. Survival requires extreme violence, including the use of a chainsaw and a wood chipper to destroy the marauder. The final confrontation in the parking garage strips away the last remnants of domestic space, reducing the conflict to raw physical struggle amid concrete vehicles and industrial equipment. Ellie's severed head continues to speak after the body is destroyed, delivering a final taunt about Beth's future failure as a mother before being fed into the chipper. The image is pure, evil dead excess, comic, repulsive, and thematically pointed. The prologue and epilogue bookend the main narrative with a lakeside cabin sequence that reconnects the film to franchise geography. Jessica's possession and the subsequent attack on her companions establish that the evil is not confined to the apartment building and that the cycle continues. The records heard earlier, including a brief uncredited voice appearance by Bruce Campbell as a figure warning against the ritual, reinforce continuity without requiring the presence of Ash Williams as an active character. Lee Cronin's decision to exclude Ash was deliberate. The story prioritizes a new family unit and a self contained outbreak rather than extending the existing hero's chronology. Production design emphasizes decay and improvisation. The apartment interiors, constructed as full sets in a New Zealand warehouse, allowed precise control over lighting, camera movement, and destruction. The building's failing systems, power outages, collapsed staircases, compromised elevators function as active antagonists alongside the Deadites. Sound design amplifies the verticality of the space, distant impacts echoing voices in shafts, and the wet, organic noises of possession travel through walls and floors. Stephen McKeon's score supports the escalation without overwhelming the practical effects or dialogue. Thematically, the film treats family as both sanctuary and vulnerability. Pre outbreak tensions, abandonment, financial stress, sibling distance, and unplanned pregnancy are not resolved by the arrival of the supernatural, they are weaponized by it. The Deadites do not invent dysfunction. They amplify and literalize it. Maternal anxiety, the fear of failing to protect children, and the horror of watching loved ones become unrecognizable are rendered through escalating physical extremity. Cronin's earlier work, particularly The Hole in the Ground, explored similar domestic anxieties. Evil Dead Rise transplants those concerns into the franchise's established mythology of the Naturom Demonto and the Kandarian demon. Critical discussion of the film frequently notes its balance of horror and dark humor. Sutherland's performance supplies much of the latter through elastic physicality and gleefully cruel dialogue, while the younger performers ground the terror in recognizable sibling dynamics. The gore is relentless and inventive. Scissors, glass, a cheese grater, and household tools join the expected chainsaw. Yet the film's most disturbing sequences are those that linger on the emotional violation rather than the physical one. The moments when a possessed parent or sibling speaks in the voice of love while preparing to kill. The film's commercial performance and critical reception positioned it as a successful extension of the series. It expanded the possible settings and character configurations without discarding the core rules of possession, the book's power, and the necessity of total destruction. Subsequent entries in the franchise have continued to explore standalone outbreaks, confirming the viability of the approach taken here. The apartment building, the earthquake, the vault, the records, and the progressive conversion of a single family into a collective threat form a complete narrative circuit that both honors and revises the Evil Dead formula. Character detail rewards close attention. Danny's interest in music and his initial decision to keep the book secret stem from a desire to help his mother financially. Bridget's early protectiveness toward her siblings makes her later possession particularly sharp. Cassie's attachment to a modified doll and her eventual acceptance of her mother's permanent absence provide the emotional through line for the final act. Beth's professional life on the road and her sudden confrontation with potential parenthood supply the external perspective that allows the audience to enter the family's crisis. Supporting neighbors who attempt to help become additional victims, expanding the body count while reinforcing the isolation of the top floor survivors, visual motifs recur with purpose. Blood is not merely decorative, it floods spaces, stains clothing, and ultimately fills the elevator in a sequence that forces Beth and Cassie into a literal and figurative descent. The book's tooth binding and the phonograph records link the modern outbreak to an earlier failure, suggesting that the evil has been contained and released before. The Marauder's design, with its excess of limbs and fused identities, externalizes the film's central fear that the family itself can become the monster. Cronin's direction maintains a tight runtime while allowing set pieces room to breathe. The elevator attack, the initial return of possessed Ellie, the successive possessions of the children, and the final garage confrontation are staged with clear geography and escalating stakes. Camera movement echoes earlier entries, aggressive pushes, canted angles, and subjective dim vision while adapting to the vertical constraints of the building. The practical construction of the sets enabled destructive sequences that would have been far more difficult in a real location. The film's engagement with motherhood is neither purely symbolic nor purely literal. Ellie's transformation turns the figure of the caretaker into the primary predator. Beth's forced assumption of protective responsibility occurs under extreme duress and without the luxury of preparation. Cassie's survival depends on both women's actions, yet the cost is the complete destruction of the original family unit. The woodchipper climax is simultaneously cathartic and grotesque, a franchise appropriate resolution that leaves the survivors marked by what they have done and seen. Production, constraints, and creative choices reinforced one another. Filming entirely on constructed sets in New Zealand provided control over every surface and system. The decision to prioritize practical effects over CGI aligned with franchise tradition and with the tactile nature of the violence. The volume of blood, the complexity of the prosthetics, and the physical demands placed on the performers all contribute to a film that feels handmade even at its most excessive. In expanding the series beyond its original geography and central character, Evil Dead Rise demonstrates that the Deadite threat is portable. The rules remain consistent, the book is dangerous, the dead return changed, and only complete obliteration ends the possession. Within those rules, the film constructs a self contained story of family under siege, using the tools of domestic drama to heighten the impact of the supernatural invasion. The result is a concentrated exercise in vertical horror, practical extremity, and the corruption of intimacy executed with the relentless energy the franchise demands. Production development and pre-production The Road to Evil Dead Rise was a winding one, shaped by years of false starts, shifting plans, and reshuffled creative teams within the wider Evil Dead franchise. Long before Lee Cronin's film came together, the series had already flirted with several different continuations that never made it to the screen in their originally conceived form. The seeds of this uncertainty were planted around the release of Fede Alvarez's 13 Evil Dead, itself a reimagining of Sam Raimi's 1981 original The Evil Dead. At the SXSW premiere of that film, Alvarez revealed that a sequel to his remake was being planned. At the same event, Sam Raimi confirmed that he intended to write a follow-up to Army of Darkness 1992 together with his brother Ivan Raimi, positioning it as a continuation of the original Ash Williams trilogy rather than an extension of Alvarez's rebooted timeline. The two projects were conceived as parallel tracks within the same franchise universe. By March 2013, at a WonderCon panel, Bruce Campbell and Alvarez laid out a larger, more ambitious plan. Alvarez's prospective Evil Dead 2 and Raimi's prospective Army of Darkness 2 would each move forward independently, before eventually converging in a seventh franchise film that would unite the story threads of Ash Williams and Mia Allen, the protagonists introduced in the 2013 remake. Campbell stated at the time that he intended to reprise Ash for the Army of Darkness sequel, and later that same month Alvarez used social media to confirm that Raimi himself would direct that follow-up. This ambitious crossover plan did not survive contact with the realities of franchise development. By November 2013, Campbell had grown skeptical that a fourth mainline Evil Dead film would materialize at all. Rather than proceeding as a feature film, Raimi's Army of Darkness 2 concept was eventually reworked into a television continuation. That series became Ash vs. Evil Dead, which starred Campbell reprising Ash Williams and aired on Stars from October 31, 2015 through April 29, 2018. Across 3 seasons, Ash vs. Evil Dead was not renewed for a 4th season, and its cancellation was confirmed in April 2019. This left the franchise once again without an active television or film project in production. Later that same year, in November 2019, Alvarez addressed the state of the franchise publicly clarifying that while ideas existed, nothing had been formally greenlit. He noted that his team had a completed script for Don't Breathe 2, but not for a follow up to his 2013 Evil Dead, explaining that a prior social media poll asking fans which project they wanted next had favored an Evil Dead sequel, even though he personally would have preferred to continue with Don't Breathe, a project of his own original creation. Since the Evil Dead franchise carried a larger built in fan base, around the same time in July 2019, Sam Raimi spoke about the franchise's future, indicating that he and his collaborators were actively developing new ideas for another Evil Dead feature film. Raimi expressed interest in working with Campbell again, though Campbell had previously stated he considered himself retired from playing Ash Williams. As an alternative, Raimi floated the idea of a direct sequel to the 2013 Alvarez remake, while acknowledging uncertainty about whether Alvarez, by then an in demand filmmaker in his own right, would still want to return to the franchise. In the end, Campbell would make a brief appearance in the film that eventually became Evil Dead Rise, though only in what director Lee Cronin later described as a very small cameo. Playing a character Cronin has characterized as a version of Ash Williams displaced in time. The concrete origins of Evil Dead Rise trace back to October 2019, when Raimi announced at New York Comic Con that a new Evil Dead film was officially in development. Under the banner of Ghost House Pictures, the production company founded by Raimi and Robert G. Tapper was set to produce the new film, while Raimi and Campbell stepped back into purely executive producer roles rather than writing or directing duties themselves. The choice of director and writer for the project was revealed the following year. In June 2020, Campbell disclosed that Lee Cronin had been personally selected by Raimi to write and direct the new installment, which at that stage carried the working title Evil Dead Now. Cronin's selection was not arbitrary. He and Raimi had previously worked together on the horror streaming anthology series 50 States of Fright, and that collaboration evidently gave Raimi confidence in Cronin's sensibilities for the genre. The project's studio and distribution arrangement solidified in May 2021 when New Line Cinema, the same company that had distributed Alvarez's 2013 Evil Dead, acquired the film. At that point, the project was retitled Evil Dead Rise, and it was slated for a direct release on the HBO Max streaming service rather than a theatrical rollout, reflecting the streaming first strategy that Warner Media was pursuing for a number of its genre titles at the time. Casting also came together in the spring and summer of 2021. That same May, it was reported that Australian actresses Alyssa Sutherland and Lily Sullivan had been cast in the film's two lead roles, playing the estranged sisters Ellie and Beth, respectively. The following month, June 2021, three more key cast members joined the project. Gabrielle Eccles, Morgan Davies, and Nell Fisher were added in supporting roles as Beth and Ellie's children, Bridget, Danny, and Cassie. In July 2021, Mia Chalice was also reported to have joined the cast. Production designer Nick Bassett later reflected on the creative freedom the project afforded, noting that because virtually the entire physical environment of the film's central apartment building was constructed rather than found on location, the production had the rare opportunity to build an imaginary space from scratch and exert full control over every element of it, rather than being constrained by the limitations of an existing real-world structure. Filming principal photography on Evil Dead Rise began in New Zealand on June 6, 2021. Cinematographer Dave Garbett, who had previously worked as a cinematographer on multiple episodes of Ash vs. Evil Dead, was brought on to shoot the film, continuing a working relationship with the franchise that predated Cronin's involvement. Production designer Nick Bassett, who also worked on the elaborate practical sets, had likewise cut his teeth on the same television series, giving the New Zealand production team a degree of institutional familiarity with the tone and visual language the Evil Dead franchise demanded. Rather than filming primarily on location, the production built most of its interior settings from scratch inside a rented warehouse space in Mount Wellington, a suburb of Auckland. This included the interior of the apartment building where the bulk of the story takes place, the parking garage beneath it, and the underground bank vault chamber that the earthquake exposes early in the film. The film's opening sequence, set at a remote lakeside cabin, was shot on private property outside Auckland. However, even here, the production blended real locations with constructed sets. The exterior of the cabin was built as a standalone facade on the actual outdoor location, while the interior of that same cabin was constructed separately back at the Mount Wellington warehouse, allowing the crew to control lighting, camera movement, and practical effects work in ways that would have been far more difficult on the exposed exterior set. Filming proceeded steadily through the summer of 2021. On July 14, 2021, Cronin announced via social media that the production had reached its halfway point. The shoot continued for several more months and officially wrapped on October 27, 2021, bringing the New Zealand-based portion of production to a close after roughly 4.5 months of filming. One of the most distinctive hallmarks of the Evil Dead franchise has always been its embrace of practical, in-camera gore effects over digital alternatives, and Evil Dead Rise continued that tradition emphatically. Cronin later revealed that the production used more than 6,500 liters, roughly 1,717 US gallons, of fake blood over the course of the shoot, a figure that underscores just how central practical bloodletting was to the film's aesthetic. The stage blood itself was a custom mixture developed by special effects supervisor Brendan Dury, combining food-based dyes, high fructose corn syrup, and water into a substance that could be manufactured, transported, and applied at scale. Because the sheer quantity required exceeded what a typical film production's effects team could reasonably produce in-house, the filmmaker contracted a commercial food manufacturer to mass-produce the substance, which was then transported and stored using large bulk shipping containers more commonly associated with food and beverage industries than film sets. Consistent with the franchise's long-standing preference for practical over computer-generated effects, the production built several elaborate mechanical sets to achieve specific in-camera sequences. The bathroom set inside Beth's apartment, for instance, was mounted on a hydraulic rig, allowing the entire structure to physically shake during key sequences involving the earthquake and the escalating supernatural threat. Similarly, the apartment building's elevator, which becomes a pivotal and highly memorable location during the film's climax, was built inside a custom steel frame engineered so that the entire elevator car could be mechanically raised or dropped on cue. The interior of that elevator set was fitted with removable wooden paneling that had been specially treated so it could withstand repeated exposure to the fake blood without becoming permanently stained, allowing the crew to reset and reshoot scenes as needed. The film's most technically ambitious sequence, in which the elevator car fills entirely with blood, required an especially elaborate practical solution. To achieve the shot, the production lowered the fully constructed elevator set into a massive tank holding roughly 6,000 liters, about 1,555 US gallons of fake blood, using a forklift to control the descent. The sequence immediately following this moment, in which the accumulated blood pours out of the elevator doors and floods across the building's lobby, was conceived as a deliberate homage to a famous visually similar sequence from Stanley Kubrick's 1980 film The Shining. To realize it, the crew built a full-size lobby set constructed partly from plywood, engineered specifically to handle the deluge. Two large dump tanks connected to a ramp system were used to regulate how quickly the liquid poured from the elevator doors, giving the effects team precise control over the visual pacing of the flood. Before committing the sequence to film, the special effects team rehearsed the entire setup using stunt performers and plain water rather than the syrup-based blood mixture, allowing them to work out timing and safety concerns without wasting the more expensive and messier fake blood. When it came time to actually shoot the sequence, the production used a multi-camera setup and completed it in only 2 takes. One focused on wide establishing shots of the flooding lobby, and a second focused on close-up coverage of the actors' reactions. Speaking about the logistics involved, Cronin later explained that resetting and cleaning the set after each attempt would have taken approximately 8 hours, meaning that if the crew had failed to capture a usable take on their first attempt, they would have had to spend the rest of the day cleaning up before shooting it again. Fortunately for the schedule, The production captured the sequence successfully on its first attempt, sparing the crew from an extended and costly reshoot. Post production following the completion of principal photography, Evil Dead Rise entered a lengthy post production process. The editing of the film's visual components alone took more than 6 months to complete. This editing work was carried out in a suite located in Dublin, Ireland, director Lee Cronin's hometown, reflecting his choice to bring the post production process back to a familiar creative environment rather than remaining in New Zealand or relocating to a major studio hub such as Los Angeles. By March 2022, the picture editing phase had wrapped, a milestone Cronin marked publicly by social media, noting that the production was moving on to music composition and sound design as its next phase of work. Mike Farmer served as the film's sound mixer, overseeing the construction of the film's dense and unsettling soundscape, an element considered especially crucial to horror filmmaking of this kind. An unusual and memorable behind-the-scenes detail from post-production involves Bruce Campbell's contribution beyond his voice cameo on the 1923 phonograph recording heard within the story. According to Cronin, Campbell also contributed Foley work to the finished film, the practice of recording and layering in supplementary sound effects during post-production. Specifically, Cronin described a scene involving a graphic moment centered on an eye, for which the required chewing and munching sound effects were achieved by having Campbell eat an apple with exaggerated intensity, a small but distinctly hands-on contribution from one of the franchise's most enduring on-screen and off-screen figures. On the financial side, reporting indicated that the film's negative pickup cost, the amount New Line Cinema paid to acquire the completed film from its independent financiers and producers, came to $19 million. Music, the task of composing Evil Dead Rise's original score, fell to Irish composer Stephen McKeon, whose hiring was formally announced in April 2022. McKeon's involvement in the project was, like several other creative hires on the film, rooted in a prior working relationship with Cronin. The two had previously collaborated on Cronin's earlier feature, The Hole in the Ground, 2019, a partnership that evidently gave the director confidence to bring McKeon aboard for the significantly larger scope of a major studio horror franchise entry. The finished score consists of 20 individual tracks with a combined runtime of 72 minutes and 54 seconds. The soundtrack opens with the brief main titles, Evil Dead Rise, running just over a minute, before moving through a series of tracks tied closely to specific story beats and set pieces. Early cues such as Meat Puppet, Swimming Headless, and Los Diablos underscore the film's opening lakeside prologue, while tracks like Underground Car Park, The Vault, Christ's Head, and Opening the Book of the Dead accompany the discovery of the buried chamber and the ancient book at the heart of the story's mythology. The lengthy incantation, running just over 4 minutes, corresponds to the recorded ritual that unleashes the story's demonic threat. As the narrative escalates, the score follows suit with tracks including Pulled Apart, the 5.5-minute Mommy's Home, and the especially lengthy Eeny Meeny Miny Die, which at 8 minutes and 17 seconds is one of the longer cues on the album. Later tracks such as Psycho Bitch, the more than 9 minutes Say Cheese, Beth and Cassie, Burning Your Bridget, and the album's longest track, Dead by Dawn, at 9 minutes and 26 seconds, carry the film through its harrowing back half. The score closes out with Final Confrontation, running 7 minutes and 39 seconds, followed by the shorter reflective cues Took Souls and Another Meat Puppet, which bring the album to its conclusion. Released theatrical for much of its development cycle, Evil Dead Rise was planned as a title destined exclusively for streaming audiences rather than theatrical release. When New Line Cinema picked up the project in May 2021, it was explicitly slated to premiere on HBO Max, in keeping with Warner Media's strategy at the time of routing a number of genre and horror titles directly to its streaming platform rather than into theaters. That plan changed substantially in August 2022. The shift away from a streaming exclusive release was driven by two converging factors. The film scored strongly with test screening audiences, and Warner Bros. Pictures was simultaneously restructuring its broader films distribution strategy to move away from HBO Max only releases in favor of a renewed emphasis on traditional theatrical distribution. Together, These factors led the studio to reverse course and commit Evil Dead Rise to a full theatrical release rather than treating it as a streaming original. The film ultimately had its world premiere at the 2023 South by Southwest Film and TV Festival on March 15, 2023, giving it a high profile launch on the festival circuit well ahead of its wide commercial release. It also received midnight screenings at the Fantastic Film Festival, Australia, held simultaneously in Sydney and Melbourne on April 20, 2023, offering Australian genre fans an early look at the film just a day before its official American theatrical debut. Evil Dead Rise then opened wide in the United States on April 21, 2023, distributed by Warner Brothers. Pictures following the studio's decision to route the film through cinemas rather than straight to streaming, home media Evil Dead Rise transitioned to home media relatively quickly following its theatrical run. The film became available for digital purchase and rental on May 9, 2023, well ahead of its physical media release. Physical formats followed roughly 6 weeks later, with the film arriving on DVD Blu-ray and Ultra HD Blu-ray on June 27, 2023. In between these two release windows, the film also became available to stream on Max, the rebranded successor to HBO Max, beginning June 23, 2023, finally delivering the film to the same streaming platform it had originally been intended for exclusively, albeit now as a supplement to a successful theatrical run rather than a replacement for one. Later in the year, Warner Brothers partnered with retailer Best Buy to release an exclusive special edition Ultra HD Blu-ray Steelbook which arrived on October 3, 2023, timed deliberately to coincide with the Halloween season, a natural marketing window for a horror title. This special edition came packaged with additional bonus content, including a full audio commentary track featuring director Lee Cronin alongside stars Lily Sullivan and Alyssa Sutherland, as well as a behind-the-scenes featurette titled Raising a New Evil Dead, giving fans additional insight into the making of the film beyond what was available in the standard home media release. Reception box office Evil Dead Rise proved to be a significant commercial success for the franchise, ultimately grossing $67.2 million in the United States and Canada and an additional $79.8 million across other international territories, for a worldwide total of $147 million. This made it the highest grossing installment in the Evil Dead film series to date, according to calculations by Deadline Hollywood, which factored together the film's full range of expenses and revenues. The film generated a net profit of approximately $46 million, a notably strong return, given the film's relatively modest negative pickup cost of $19 million. In North America, Evil Dead Rise opened during a competitive weekend, releasing alongside Guy Ritchie's The Covenant Chevalier and the wide expansion of Beau is Afraid. Ahead of release, industry trackers projected the film would open in the range of $15 million to $20 million from 3,402 theaters. The film exceeded initial projections, earning $10.3 million on its opening day alone, a figure that included $5 million from Thursday night preview screenings. Over its full opening weekend, the film ultimately brought in $24.5 million, coming in slightly ahead of pre-release expectations, though it landed in second place at the box office behind the holdover hit The Super Mario Bros. Movie, which continued to dominate the marketplace in its third weekend of release. Audience data for the opening weekend indicated that 58% of moviegoers were male and 66% of the audience fell between the ages of 18 and 35, reflecting the film's strong appeal to core horror genre demographics. Evil Dead Rise maintained solid momentum in the weeks that followed. In its second weekend, the film earned $12.2 million, once again finishing in second place at the domestic box office. By its third weekend, earnings had declined to $5. $9 million, and the film slipped to third place, this time finishing behind both the continuing box office powerhouse Super Mario Bros. And the newly released Marvel blockbuster Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which had opened strongly that same weekend. Internationally, the film performed robustly as well, opening to $17.9 million across 58 markets outside the United States and Canada during its first weekend abroad. Among individual international markets, Mexico led the way with $1.9 million, followed by the United Kingdom at $1.8 million and Brazil at $1.5 million. France and India together contributed a combined $3.2 million. with India's contribution alone reported as the equivalent of approximately 26.1 crore rupees, reflecting the film's meaningful reach into international horror markets beyond the traditional Western strongholds for the genre. Critical response Evil Dead Rise was met with a strongly positive critical reception upon release, distinguishing it as one of the better reviewed entries in a franchise that has historically enjoyed a devoted cult following. On the review aggregation website Rotten Tomatoes, the film held an 85% positive rating based on 241 critics' reviews at the time of its widely cited tabulation. The site's official critical consensus characterized the film as delivering nearly everything longtime devotees of the franchise could hope for, while still finding ways to meaningfully push the series forward rather than simply repeating past formulas. On Metacritic, which aggregates critical opinion using a weighted average methodology rather than a simple positive negative split, Evil Dead Rise earned a score of 69 out of 100 based on 38 critics, a result the site's own scale characterizes as indicating generally favorable reviews. This score placed the film comfortably in positive territory, if somewhat more measured than its enthusiastic Rotten Tomatoes standing might suggest. Reflecting the natural differences between the two aggregation methodologies, audience reaction measured through more traditional exit survey mechanisms was somewhat more moderate than critical reaction, though still net positive. CinemaScore, which surveys opening weekend moviegoers as they leave theaters, reported an average grade of B for the film on its A plus to F scale, a solid but unspectacular result, and one that is fairly typical for horror films in general, a genre whose visceral and often polarizing content tends to produce more moderate CinemaScore results than crowd-pleasing films in other genres. Separately, audiences polled by Post-Track gave the film a 71% positive score, with 57% of respondents indicating they would definitely recommend the film to others, rounding out a picture of an audience response that, while not universally rapturous, was clearly favorable on balance. The film also picked up recognition from several industry awards bodies over the course of the year, reflecting its critical standing within the broader horror and genre filmmaking community. At the 2023 Golden Trailer Awards, Evil Dead Rise itself received a nomination for Best Horror Trailer, while two of its promotional trailers, You produced by Buddha Jones and Free, produced by Level Up AV, were both nominated for Best Horror TV Spot for a feature film. A third piece of the film's marketing campaign, Click Review, produced by Mosian, went on to actually win in that television spot category, giving the film's marketing team tangible recognition alongside the finished feature itself. The film was also named a runner-up for Best Horror at the 6th Hollywood Critics Association Mid-Season Film Awards, a further indicator of strong critical regard within genre-focused award circles. At the 51st Saturn Awards, one of the most prominent award ceremonies dedicated specifically to science fiction, fantasy, and horror filmmaking, Evil Dead Rise received two nominations for Best Horror Film and Best Makeup, the latter nomination reflecting the extensive and widely praised practical effects and makeup work that brought the film's deadite transformations to life. Star Alyssa Sutherland, whose performance as the possessed matriarch Ellie was frequently singled out by critics as a highlight of the film, received individual recognition as well. She was nominated for Best Actress in a Horror Movie and Best Villain in a Movie at relevant genre award ceremonies, while the film overall picked up a nomination for Best Horror Movie at the 4th Critics' Choice Super Awards, an event dedicated to honoring standout work in superhero, science fiction, fantasy, horror, and action film and television. Taken together, the film's combination of strong reviews, solid audience approval, robust box office performance relative to its budget, and multiple award nominations across genre-specific ceremonies cemented Evil Dead Rise's reputation as one of the more successful and well-regarded modern entries in the long-running Evil Dead franchise, helping pave the way for subsequent franchise announcements, including a 6th installment, Reviews Number 1 Evil Dead Rise 2023, details for in theaters near. Calendar for movie times is selected. Movie times calendar, loading calendar. Filter movie times by screen format is selected. Know when tickets go on sale. Will notify you when tickets go on sale in your area and more for Evil Dead Rise 23. Featured news. Frequently asked questions. Apple Pay Wednesday. Use Apple Pay to get $5 off your order. Limited time offer and limited quantities available. To redeem the offer, purchase one or more movie tickets every Wednesday through August 19, 2026. Participating Wednesday 6/17/26, 6/24/26, 7/20/26, 7/22/26, 7/29/26, 8/5/26, 8/12/26, 8/19/26 to see any film through fandango.com or the Fandango iOS mobile app and use Apple Pay as the payment method and must enter the Fandango promotional code Apple Pay WED code in order to get the $5 off the entire purchase. There is a limited quantity of code redemptions allowed in this promotion, and therefore the offer is only available first come first served while supplies last. Code expires and can no longer be used upon earlier of every participating Wednesday or after the limit of code redemptions have been reached, only valid for purchase of movie tickets made at Fandango. Calm or via the Fandango iOS app and cannot be redeemed directly at any theater box office. If lost or stolen, cannot be replaced. No cash value except as required by law. Void where prohibited. Not valid with any other offer. Offer valid in US one-time use only per email address for a maximum of one transaction, receiving a maximum of $15 discount on the purchase total regardless of how many tickets were purchased in that one transaction. Not for resale. Void if sold or exchanged. Limit one code per email address. Fandango reserves the right to modify or cancel this offer at any time and without notice. The redemption of the code is subject to Fandango's terms and policies at www.fandango. Terms and policies. Apple Pay is a service provided by Apple Payment Services LLC, a subsidiary of Apple Inc. Neither Apple Inc. nor Apple Payment Services is a bank. Any card used in Apple Pay is offered by the card issuer. Apple Pay is a registered mark of Apple Inc. special offer. Get the Transformers, the movie 40th anniversary bundle and receive one movie ticket to the Transformers, the movie 40th anniversary plus a Fandango exclusive poster. The Transformers, the movie 40th anniversary bundle is non-refundable. The Transformers up. The movie 40th anniversary will only be available in select theaters between 9/17/26 and 9/21/26. Check here https://www.fandango. Calm Solace Transformers, the movie 40th of an anniversary 2026 246634 Mavo View for show times before making your purchase. Domestic shipping will be added at checkout. Limited time offer while supplies last. Movie ticket is non-refundable and non-exchangeable. Fandango reserves the right to modify or cancel this offer at any time and without notice. You must be 18 years of age or older to purchase a bundle. The Fandango exclusive limited edition poster featuring raised pot glass will begin shipping in October. Please use a physical US address where the Fandango exclusive limited edition poster featuring raised spot glass shipment can be delivered. Once carrier confirms delivery, Fandango is not responsible for lost or stolen deliveries. See full terms and conditions at https://redeem.fandango.com/Transformers the movie 40th anniversary bundle. Special offer: buy one ticket to idiots, get one free, up to $15 off ticket price and fees. During opening weekend showtimes 8/28, 8/30 with code IDEASBOGO. Limited time offer. While supplies last, there is a limited quantity of code redemptions allowed in this promotion. Visit Fandango. Come between 8/11/26 and 8/30/26 at fandango.com or via the Fandango app. Buy at least one ticket to see Idiots at a participating Fandango theater during opening weekend. Showtimes between 8/28/26 and 8/30/26. And use Fandango promotional code IDEASBOGO code to get up to $15 off total ticket price and associate fees and charges. One additional ticket for the same showtime. Code expires and can no longer be used upon the earlier of 11:59 p.m. PT on 8/30/26, the limit of code redemptions being reached, or when Idiots is no longer available in theaters. Code must be entered at checkout. Only valid for purchase of movie ticket made at Fandango. Calm or via the Fandango app and cannot be redeemed directly at any theater box office. If cost of movie ticket base and associate fees and charges are more than code's maximum discount, then user must pay the difference. Any price difference between total transaction price and code's maximum discount will not be refunded. If lost or stolen, cannot be replaced. No cash value except as required by law. Void where prohibited. Not valid with any other offer. Offer valid in US only, excluding US territories and where prohibited by law. You may have to pay taxes additionally. Non-transferable, not for resale, void if sold or exchanged. Excludes multiple admission tickets. Fandango is not a sponsor or co-sponsor of this offer. Fandango reserves the right to modify or cancel this offer at any time without notice. This offer and the redemption of the code are subject to Fandango's terms and policies at the www.fandango.com.terms and policies. House of Worship. Experience the songs and artists that shape modern worship. Get tickets to see House of Worship in select theaters August 23rd. Gift with purchase. Buy a ticket to Spa Weekend and get $35 off a Resort Pass Day Pass or Spa Pass with the purchase of any Resort Pass Day or Spa Pass at full price. Limited time offer while supplies last. Log into your account on fandango.com or the Fandango app between 9:00 a.m. PT on 8/11/26 and 11:59 p.m. PT on 9/7/26 and purchase at least one ticket to see Spa Weekend at a participating Fandango theater. Purchaser will receive a post-purchase email containing 1 Resort Pass promotional code that is good for either. Up to 35 off the purchase of 1 Resort Pass Spa Pass with the purchase of 1 full price Resort Pass Spa Pass. Or up to $35 off the purchase of 1 Resort Pass Day Pass with the purchase of 1 full price Resort Pass Day Pass. Code expires and must be redeemed by 11:59 p.m. PT on 8/11/27. Code is one-time use only. Limit 1 code redemption per person. Code is non-transferable, has no cash value, and cannot be combined with other offers or promotions. Valid at participating Resort Pass properties only, subject to availability. You must have and be logged into your Fandango account to receive a code. Fandango is free to join. You must be 18 years of age or older to create a Fandango account. Fandango reserves the right to modify or cancel this offer at any time and without notice. This offer is subject to Fandango's terms and policies at http to Fandango's terms www.fandango.com/terms and policies. Redemption of the code. Your Resort Pass booking and use of any Resort Pass services is subject to Resort Pass's terms and policies at http www.resortpass.com/terms conditions. Special offer. Surprise a loved one with an exclusive gift card to see House of Worship in select theaters. To send a House of Worship gift card, 1. Visit Fandango at www.fandango.com Fandango gift cards. 2. Scroll to select your design under Movie Gift Cards to find House of Worship. 3. Choose Email Card Digital 4. Personalize your digital gift card. Select the amount outie recipient. Message 5. Schedule delivery. Special offer. Experience the end of Oak Street in IMAX and get $7 off an IMAX ticket with code Oak Street IMAX. Limited time offer while supplies last. There is a limited quantity of code redemptions allowed in this promotion. Log into your Fandango account on fandango.com or via the Fandango app between 9:00 a.m. on 7/22/26 and 8/26/26. Purchase 2 or more IMAX tickets to see the end of Oak Street at a participating Fandango theater and enter the Fandango promotional code OakStreetIMAX code to receive up to $14 off your purchase. Code expires and can no longer be used if not redeemed by 11:59 p.m. on 8/26/26 or when the limit of code redemptions is reached or when the end of Oak Street is no longer available in IMAX theaters, whichever comes first. Code must be entered at checkout. Only valid for purchase of movie tickets made at Fandango. Or via the Fandango app and cannot be redeemed directly at any theater box office. You must have and be logged into a Fandango account to redeem the code on Fandango. Fandango is free to join. You must be 18 years of age or older to create a Fandango account. If cost of movie tickets and associated fees and charges is more than code's maximum discount, then user must pay the difference. Any price difference between total transaction price and code's maximum discount will not be refunded. One-time use only. Void where prohibited. Offer is non-transferable and cannot be combined with any other offer or discount. No cash value except as required by law. Not for resold or exchanged. Offer valid in the US only, excluding US territories and where prohibited by law. You may have to pay taxes additionally. Limit 1 code redemption per person. Fandango reserves the right to modify or cancel this offer at any time and without notice. This offer and redemption of the code are subject to Fandango's terms and policies and privacy policy at http www.fandango.com.terms and policies. Join fan club to get 2 free tickets. Get 2 free tickets to use later when you join fan club with your Insidious. Out of the further ticket order, the Insidious out of the further 2 free tickets later fan club promotion offer, the offer begins 8/5/26 and will run for a limited time. Offer valid for new fan club members only. To be eligible, you must subscribe to a 1-month paid fan club membership $9.99 plus tax, then $9.99 per month thereafter until cancelled when purchasing tickets to Insidious. Out of the further on the Fandango website or mobile app. Eligible members will receive 2 free ticket promo codes via email within 24 to 48 hours after successful fan club sign up. To redeem the offer, you must complete checkout while an eligible fan club membership is in your cart. Offer valid in the US only, excluding US territories and where prohibited by law. Void where prohibited. Adjustments to prior purchases not permitted. Taxes may apply. Offer may only be redeemed once per person. Fandango is not responsible for lost, delayed, undeliverable, or misdirected emails. Fandango reserves the right to withdraw or modify this offer at any time in its sole discretion and without notice. Additional terms and conditions apply, including Fandango's terms and policies at www.fandango.com/terms and policies. Special offer. Get the Texas Chainsaw Day bundle and receive 1 movie ticket to Texas Chainsaw Day 2026 plus an exclusive poster. Texas Chainsaw Day bundle is non-refundable. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre will only be available in select theaters on 8/18/26. Check here https://www.fandango.com Texas Chainsaw Day 26/24/6288 overview for showtimes before purchasing the bundle. Domestic shipping will be added at checkout. Limited time offer while supplies last. Movie ticket is non-refundable and non-exchangeable. Fandango reserves the right to modify or cancel this offer at any time and without notice. You must be 18 years of age or older to purchase a bundle. The exclusive poster will begin shipping in August. Please use a physical US address where the exclusive poster shipment can be delivered. Once carrier confirms delivery, Fandango is not responsible for lost or stolen deliveries. See full terms and conditions at https://redeem.fandango.com. Product is Texas Chainsaw Day bundle. Special offer. Use code MAGIC3 for 1 free ticket. Up to $15 off ticket price and fest to see the Magic Faraway Tree during opening weekend showtimes 8/21/8/23. Limited time offer while supplies last. There is a limited quantity of code redemptions allowed in this promotion. Fandango promotional code MAGIC3. Code is good for up to $15 off. Total ticket price and associated fees and charges the purchase of 1 movie ticket to see the Magic Faraway Tree at a participating Fandango theater in the US during opening weekend. Showtimes between 8/21/26 and 8/23/20. Code expires and can no longer be used upon the earlier of 11:59 p.m. PT on 8/23/26, the limit of code redemptions being reached, or when the Magic Faraway Tree is no longer available in theaters. You must have a Fandango account and be logged into your account to use the code. Fandango is free to join. You must be 18 years of age or older to create a Fandango account. Code must be entered at checkout. Only valid for purchase of movie ticket made at Fandango. Come or via the Fandango app and cannot be redeemed directly at any theater box office. If cost of movie ticket and associated fees and charges are more than code's maximum discount, then user must pay the difference. Any price difference between total transaction price and code's maximum discount will not be refunded. If lost or stolen, cannot be replaced. No cash value except as required by law. Void where prohibited. Not valid with any other offer. Offer valid in US only, excluding US territories and where prohibited by law. You may have to pay taxes additionally. One-time use only. Non-transferable, not for resale. Void if sold or exchanged. Excludes multiple admission tickets. Limit 1 code redemption per person. Fandango reserves the right to modify or cancel this offer at any time without notice. This offer and the redemption of the code are subject to Fandango's terms and policies at www.fandango.com dormers and policies. Number 2, under the needle, recent posts. Reviewed The Ice Cream Man. Reviewed Obsession 2026. Reviewed Incineration Festival 2026 Part 2 Blood, Fire, Death. Evil Dead Rise 2023. Review by Leon Mason. May 15, 2023. To Min Reed. Don't go expecting an Evil Dead film and you might have a reasonably fun night out with this exercise in gore. Everything and the kitchen sink is thrown at the screen and some of it sticks. However, If you go with expectations based on the early hype set partly by the makers of the original Evil Dead franchise, then you might feel heavily let down. Sam Raimi, Rob Tappert, and Bruce Campbell are all producers to some extent here, and they want you to believe this is the ultimate experience in screen horror for a new generation. The setup is sound with a great opening that promises much. We are definitely in bloody territory with early deaths being gruesome and sticky. As the bona fide story settles in, the air of excitement at where we are going bodes foul. However, heading to the city is not a bad move. A fresh setting is a welcome thing. Yet, as we are trapped with one family in a single apartment, the oppressive atmosphere necessitates characters we care about. Think Lost Boys or Poltergeist for a family dynamic that makes you care about what happens to these people. It may be a modern world with all the realism and flawed ticks that go with contemporary cinema, but Hereditary did it just fine with a bunch of people in one home that you gave a crap about as nastiness seeped into the walls around them. Director Lee Cronin can make a solid horror film that builds nicely and grabs you by the lapels to take you on a wild ride while also making you feel yucky. He proved this with his debut, A Hole in the Ground. Although Evil Dead Rise is well made, it is a matter of blood flying all over the place and nothing actually meaning anything. We see scissors going into faces, kitchen implements used in ways that they were never designed for, young children in threat, and lifts filling into a pool of the red stuff that clearly makes you think of The Shining, but is rather redundant when two films have pulled that off brilliantly in just the last 5 years. The tone is deadly serious, with the obligatory teenage angst shown in forms of protest and severe haircuts, plus a family living in dire conditions due to lack of funds, but then jokes are thrown in as fan service, harking back to the comedy of the second film in the original trilogy. They don't fit at all with all the well meaning, earnest gloom of this effort. The remake from 10 years ago straddled the disturbing possession of innocence and crazy roller coaster ride of an enjoyable gore fest much better. A good horror film with its moments, not bad enough to tarnish, but also not a fitting Evil Dead franchise flick that possibly should have stuck to the streaming source it was set up to play on. It stands alone as an okay visit to the cinema. You won't be having nightmares though. 6. 510. Email us on darkmatter.vedzine judging us below. mscript src https://storage.kofi.com storage overlay.kotks kofi widget overlay.draw dark matter webzine. Type floating chat donate button dot text support me floating chat donate button background color dot 323842 floating chat donate button dot text color script. Number 3, The Shield. The Shield. The Shield. Evil Dead Rise is a bloody good time. Evil Dead Rise is the fifth film in the iconic horror franchise. Courtesy of Warner Brothers, Ian Lloyd, staff writer, April 27, 2023. The Evil Dead, released in 1981, was an extremely low-budget horror film made by a bunch of college friends in the woods during a few grueling weeks of filming. It was one of the first films that proved to aspiring young filmmakers that you didn't need much to make an effective movie. It also built up a reputation for being one of the most depraved films of all time, as it got passed around video stores and groups of horror junkies. As the cult following around it grew, so did director Sam Raimi's career, until he was able to direct two sequels, Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, which both leaned further into the comedic elements of the franchise. In 2013, a remake, simply titled Evil Dead, was released, playing with the original idea of the very first film's reception of being the goriest movie ever and cranking it up to 11. It's been 10 years since, and we have not had another film installment until now. Beth Lily Sullivan visits her sister Ellie, Alyssa Sutherland, and Ellie's kids at their high-rise apartment in Los Angeles after she finds out she is pregnant. An ancient book is discovered under the building and is revealed to be a book of the dead. It unleashes an evil into the decrepit apartment building and takes possession of the different residents. Beth must protect her family from this ancient evil in hopes that they will not all end up dead by dawn. Evil Dead Rise made me want to barf multiple times, and I loved every second of it. This film contains some of the most brutal and visceral, disgusting special effects we've ever seen in the current horror landscape, which is saying a lot during this current renaissance of the genre. It lives up to the reputation this series has held for over 4 decades as one of the goriest and most unsettling films out there. It boosts the gross factor to the max, and it does not disappoint on the amount of blood you will see on screen. Where other horror franchises are most known and appreciated for their atmosphere, masked antagonists, or creative kills, Evil Dead stands as one of the most popular series for its emphasis on the craft of filmmaking. The story of each Evil Dead film is much more interesting in what took place behind the scenes. The special effects, cinematography, and level of commitment from the actors have always shone through as the touchstone of these movies. Watching supplemental material and the home releases of these movies is almost as fun as the films themselves. While the practical effects are a huge star of the show, the biggest highlight is the performance from Sutherland. Every performer is killing it, but Sutherland sticks out as the main Deadite, a demon possessing the body of a human victim. The Deadites are known for their cruel mockery of their human prey as they go about slicing and dicing through the cast of characters. But Evil Dead Rise gives Sutherland a bigger presence that dominates the film with her chaotic nature. It's incredible that a franchise that has hopped around from different directors, actors, and tonal consistencies has remained this reliable in quality for 4 decades. What began as an atmospheric, gory indie film morphed into slapstick comedy, to medieval adventures, back into gritty horror, and now somehow a balance between all of them. Evil Dead Rise may not be the best the series has to offer, but it sure brings a whole lot to the table. It's a wonderful continuation that brings beloved elements from ages ago and modernizes them into something new and exciting. This film had me squirming around in my seat, peeking through my fingers and giggling with delight like a goblin. Evil Dead Rise fully delivers on a revolting good time that brings in the best elements from the original trilogy and the 2013 remake. The Evil Dead series is my favorite horror franchise, and it's safe to say this newest entry not only blew my expectations out of the water, but also opened up a new door for future installments to this influential series of films. If you've got the stomach for practical effects, gore galore, and cheesy one liners, I insist you watch Evil Dead Rise with as many people as possible. Evil Dead Rise, film review, films, horror movie, Ian Lloyd review, Ian Lloyd writing movie review, movies. The Evil Dead, UC Movies. Your donation will support the student journalists of University of Southern Indiana. Your contribution will allow us to purchase equipment and cover our annual website hosting costs. Boil Water Advisory leaves USI students without timeline for resolution 350 views. Opinion: Generative AI sparks widespread ethical discourse 154 views. There are new hatchlings in the nest 122 views. What to expect during Welcome Week 88 views. Gallery Springs commencement ceremonies give farewell to bachelors and masters 72 views. Number 4 home about review Evil Dead Rise 2023 preamble. Hey everyone. It's really been a while since I last blogged. Apologies for that. Work has been the busiest it's been in quite some time, and I was working on something that I will mention soon. But the time off has given me a lot to think about. Suffice to say, I will try from now on to deliver on the posts that I want to see. It's easier said than done, but writing for others has made me lose sight of that simple notion. There's no point in just sprucing up your house when guests come along, you have to maintain it at all times. The same could be said for my upkeep of the blog and writing at large at the moment. But terrible metaphors aside, let's get to the film of the day. I tend to say this about a lot of films these days, but Evil Dead Rise has truly felt as though it has snuck up on me. While I've had the idea of this film in the back of my mind, it's only in the last few weeks that I became acutely aware of its existence. I even embarrassingly forgot to include it on my top 10 most anticipated films of 2023. To quote the Pharaoh from We Got Us, dick move bro. So with that said, have you seen Evil Dead Rise? If not, are you planning to see it this weekend? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like my ramblings on horror, then you can read more at my second home, Horror Obsessive. My recent post on there is a review of the remake of Resident Evil 4. It's my first ever video game review and a genuine labor of love for a title that's meant a lot to me. Review: The Evil Dead was a formative horror movie for me. When I saw it at age 18 during my first year of university, I was shocked by its purity as a horror movie in the sense that most movies within the genre play by the rules of setup and characterization. However, much like a rabid and rage fueled dog, the 1981 picture unshackled itself from all that pretense and delivered an unrelenting ride of low budget thrills and scares. Despite the infamous sequence involving the tree that arguably got the film on the video nasty list in the UK, I never found the movie to be mean spirited or nasty for the sake of it. Instead, director Sam Raimi had the puckishness of an adolescent who wished to say he got the audience good. It was this quality that came to define later entries. Evil Dead 2's semi-remake nature was imbued with a comedic edge that brought a great deal of zaniness and love of early cinema. It's an effort that greatly carries a certain history of the medium. Army of Darkness is an outlier insofar as being a vehicle for Bruce Campbell to schmooze his way through a medieval England that feels at home in an early Terry Gilliam movie. And the 2013 remake is a slick and dramatic retelling of the first film. It's remarkable for arguably being an elevated horror movie with its depiction of the blurred line between Mia's Jane Levy, drug withdrawal, and demonic possession. The fifth Evil Dead confidently rises to the occasion of its franchise legacy with an entry that emphasizes the sheer psychological terror of its domestic and familial setting. Evil Dead Rise tells the story of Beth Lily Sullivan, an indie music technician who returns to see her sister Ellie Alyssa Sutherland, who is raising three kids by herself. Their youngest daughter, Cassie Nell Fisher, middle child Danny Morgan Davies, and eldest daughter Bridget Gabrielle Eccles. After surviving a mild earthquake, Danny finds an ancient book hidden beneath the depths of his high rise home. Little does he know that the records of passages from the book hold a sinister curse that will bring ruin to his family. Part of the uniqueness of the Evil Dead franchise is that each installment is a riff on its simple premise of demons being summoned via the Necronomicon, a book of the dead. Much of my delight during the movie came from sequences that played on familiar notes in new and unique ways. From the protracted opening fast motion demon point of view shot to the possession scene taking place in a lift, Rise easily subverts the standard tenets of the franchise. But the emphasis in the subversions made the experience interesting. Rise has a tactile quality that makes its horror quite appealing. In fact, this aspect is best illustrated in the scenes where characters are listening to records of the Book of the Dead being found while gently massaging the center of the vinyl to keep the audio logs going. This also extends to the setting that's creatively used. The typical trapping of the central demon being locked in the cellar by the survivors is updated here to be outside an apartment. And our glimpse of the creature comes from a small mirror built into the front door. These point of view shots, whereby we are seeing the demon unleash upon unsuspecting neighbors, embrace the found footage genre that ruled the early 2000s. Along with gnarly imagery later in the film that evokes the body horror of the human centipede, Rise is on the pulse of the horror that fueled it, much like the early cinematic comedies that inspired Sam Raimi's 1987 sequel. But beyond its tactile and subversive power, Rise comes closest to the psychological horror that's lurked beneath the surface of the famed horror franchise. This comes from the domestic situation that's presented to the audience. By having Ellie as the central victim of demonic possession, Rise plays on the primal fear of maternal harm and spurned affection. This quality is juxtaposed with Beth, who is about to become a mom and now has to rise to the challenge of looking after and protecting her sister's kids. In fact, in the movie's most touching moment, Cassie says to Beth that she will be a great mom because she knows how to lie to kids. The screenplay has many moments like this that do not talk down to kids but instead realistically shows how they can pick up on the stressed emotions going on around them. Writer-director Lee Cronin punctuates these heartfelt scenes with moments that are directed as though some of the demons are the figment of a feverish childhood dream. One memorable scene is when one of the demons, covered in blankets, floats across the space like a ghost. Cronin's use of long shots give these scenes an eerie edge. Cronin juxtaposes this with visceral camera moves, whether it's sped up footage of Beth running to save Cassie, that's meant to evoke the frenetic demon point of view shots, or shaky first person shots that end the movie. Lily Sullivan is appealing as a determined mother to be who will stop at nothing to protect her nephew and nieces. And Alyssa Sutherland is terrifying in her flickering states of being an attentive mother and a monstrous demonic presence. If there's one problem that permeates the movie, it's some of the sound design that occasionally drowns out the dialogue. And many scenes do rely on an annoying problem that plagues many modern horror movies, namely using loud noises to deliver their scares. While Evil Dead can somewhat get a pass on this based on the over the top nature of its prior installments, I still found it tiresome that Rise constantly attempts to break the sound barrier. About Sartaj Govind Singh. Approximately Alignments. Og til kommer til sig selvfølgelig fi for at tale det Archives. July 2026, May 2026, April 2026, March 2026, February 2026, January 2025, August 2025, July 2025, June 2025, May 2025, April 2025, February 2025, January 2025, December 2024, October 2024, September 2024, August 2024, July 2024, May 2024, March 2024, February 2024, January 2024, October 2023, September 2023, August 2023, July 2023, June 2023, May 2023, April 2023. March 2023, February 2023, January 2023, December 2022, October 2022, August 2022, July 2022, June 2022, May 2022, April 2022, March 2022, January 2022, December 2021, November 2021, October 2021, September 2021, August 2021, July 2021, May 2021, April 2021, March 2021, February 2021, January 2021, December 2020, November 2020, October 2020, September 2020, August 2020, July 2020, May 2020, April 2020, March 2020, December 2019, November 2019, October 2019, September 2019, August 2019, July 2019, June 2019, May 2019, April 2019, February 2019, January 2019. December 2018, November 2018, September 2018, September 2018, August 2018, July 2018, May 2018, April 2018, March 2018, February 2018, January 2017, December 2017, October 2017, September 2017, August 2017, July 2017, June 2017, May 2017, 2017, April 2017, March 2017, February 2017, January 2016, November 2016, October 2016, August 2016, July 2016, June 2016, May 2016, April 2016, March 2016, February 2016, January 2016, December 2015, November 2015, November 2015, October 2015, September 2015, June 2015, March 2015, February 2015, January 2015, November 2014, October 2014, August 2014. July 2014. Number 5, Evil Dead Rise 2023. Review sees summary with spoilers. Family togetherness takes a dark turn as Mommy is possessed by the Deadites and looks to unite her whole family in her bloody quest. Spoiler alert. This summary and review contains spoilers. Additionally, some images and text may include affiliate links, meaning we may earn a commission or receive products if you make a purchase. Two estranged sisters are reunited, but the visit is interrupted by a most nefarious evil that takes hold of the family and reshapes their reality into a nightmarish hell. Film summary/review. Director Lee Cronin of The Hole in the Ground and Sam Raimi score with another bloody gorefest feather in the cap for the Evil Dead franchise. All the normal ingredients are there in this ghoulish stew with jump scares, body contortions, icky bugs, creative yet disgusting body maiming and dismemberment, and of course the staple acerbic party. Beth Lily Sullivan, a touring guitar technician for rock bands, discovers she is pregnant and decides to renew her family ties by visiting her estranged sister Ellie, Alyssa Sutherland. Unbeknownst to her, Ellie is now divorced and struggling to raise her three children Cassie, Nell Fisher, Danny, Morgan Davies, and Bridget Gabrielle Eccles alone. She is overwhelmed with stress as she also has to find a new place to live, as the dilapidated apartment building she lives in is scheduled for demolition. Ellie's son discovers the Book of the Dead in an underground bank below the apartment building that is unearthed after a quake and brings it home to explore. The action revs up from there in normal Evil Dead fashion as the Deadites possess Mom Ellie and she now loves her children to death. Although the setting has been changed from an isolated cabin in the woods that worked so well to an apartment building, the writers still give that confined, constricted feel as most have abandoned the building, and the lighting is low, lending itself to an ominous, shadowy, and grim setting. There is much to please horror fans as the deadly deranged mom twists her body in disturbing contortions and climbs walls to pursue her loving family. The ensuing kills are creative, with three seen through a peephole with garish lighting that adds a supernatural glow. There is an awesomely depraved scene where the younger sister no less impales her possessed older sister. There is much for the Evil Dead franchise fans to love in gnarly, ghoulish, blood-soaked delights, especially towards the end with a blood-soaked elevator bath. The monstrosity with many heads spliced and diced in a wood chipper should satisfy those looking for that elevated kill. For all the good, there should have been more explanation and detail on the Book of the Dead, which was left rather ambiguous. It was a good horrific ride, but not top-notch. Sullivan and Sutherland are the celebrated new sister queens of horror. Sullivan's Beth wielding the chainsaw was a nice and exhilarating nod to Ash. Things to note: why is Evil Dead Rise rated R? Dialogue: there are 8 sexual expletives, 16 scatological curses, and occasional uses of mild profanities and terms of deity. Violence: the violence is extreme with many blood soaked moments. Sexual content: there are brief images of nudity not sexually related. Miscellaneous: brief images of adults smoking and drinking. Character descriptions. Please note, this character guide is not an exhaustive list of every cast member, and character descriptions may contain what can be considered spoilers. Beth, sister to Ellie, who has long been away working as a touring guitar technician to rock groups but needs a return to family amidst the discovery of her pregnancy. Ellie, sister to Beth, struggling with raising 3 kids in a dilapidated apartment building due for demolition. Cassie, the youngest child of Beth, who is sweet and funny. Danny, second to the oldest child of Ellie, who is too curious and inquisitive for his own good. Bridget, the oldest child of Ellie, who is practical and well grounded. Gabriel, helpful religious neighbor to Ellie in the apartment building. Mr. Fonda, older neighbor to Ellie in the apartment building. Jessica, Ellie's neighbor featured in the opening sequence of the movie. Teresa, friend to Ellie's neighbor Jessica, also featured in the film's opening sequence. Ninja Tapu's ID 46802 seconds. Images used for editorial and commentary purposes. All rights remain with their respective copyright holders. Site pages. The overall goal of Wherever I Look is to fill in that space between the average fan and critic and advise you on what's worth experiencing. Category pages. Welcome to Wherever I Look, your go-to destination for insightful and personable reviews of the latest TV episodes, movies, and live performances. Also, dive into our character guides and discover what's truly worth your time.